plant forward, taking down animal proteins about 30%, give or take, depending on what the particular modality is of that. Like the kitchen space that I have right now has 7 restaurants in it that I operate at one big commissary kitchen. So you give them lots of choice, dazzle them with new things on rotation and go through it. I find that surprisingly to me, things that are going well with students is focusing more on plant-based foods. I also have a restaurant that's operating now with 0 allergens in it, like no sulfates,
Oh, wow.
no egg, no dairy, no mustard, and nothing. And that's going quite well for us. Letting students access information. We have a thing called Meal Viewer going on where a student can sit in front of the restaurant and look at every single dish's nutritional and dietary things. Like the information flow is huge.
Wow.
That's a nightmare to set up. I would never sign up for that again, but it's beautiful. And so we're working on those things, which is very different than like my predominant career focus of small hole in the wall cooking with, 90 hours a week.
Right.
Now I work for university and like I'm supposed to be working 40 hours a week. That's crazy.
What would be your dream job in this space?
In the space that I'm in right now?
No, like just in this industry.
They've all been my dream jobs. You make them that. I'm so happy doing what I'm doing right now. It's phenomenal. I've never been able to touch so many people. Right now, this is my dream job. I have access to, almost 6,000 meals a day. And I've never had that much access to people having something that has to do with me going in their mouth. It's phenomenal. So this is the dream job. Prior to that, I've always, maybe I sensationalize a little bit as to make my passion for what I'm doing better, but like I'm loving this. In the future of this, who knows? I'll be with this for quite some time, I'm sure, because my goals are so out of reach. So I have to work very long and hard to make sure that we get to those goals. I would hope to retire to like a retirement job of fishing and farming oysters and foraging and I would love to do that as soon as possible.
Okay, cool. You mentioned your goals are really out of reach. I love big audacious goals as well.
Yeah.
So can you share some with us?
Oh, I mean,
and are they all just like food related or just life related?
They all kind of come together at some point.
Right.
There you go. To be able to step away from like the big buzzing city, and to tuck away into the woods somewhere and just completely self-sustain.
Okay.
I've taken some swings at that a couple times in life, but never as serious as I'd really like to. I've never had all of the parts of that in place. Now I have a partner that I want to do that with. I got married this summer.
Congrats.
That thanks a lot. Well, you're a new father as well.
Yes,
It's been a big year. It's been a big year.
Yeah.
I think that was a major factor that now that's all within reach. It's just a matter of time until those things go. And then the other goals that I think that we're speaking about are all professional goals, which are top secret. But
Right.
but they're, when you put them really far, or really, really high, you're forced to up all the other things below.
Mm-hmm.
And those are happening right now. It's my 33rd. I'm in my 33rd year, which is somebody told me somewhere along the lines that was the year of enlightenment.
Oh.
I don't know if I feel enlightened yet, but a lot of really crazy things have happened this year, and I've put a lot of thought into the long game. If we can make, your questions have all been, industry food related. If we can make like a little difference every single year, to me, that's enough. But the goals are getting bigger and bigger.
Can we branch out then a bit outside of the industry? You and I came to know each other through a comment you had made on a previous podcast that was shared by our mutual friend, Chef Trevor Bird.
Yeah.
So I was quick to add you as a friend on Facebook, and then we kind of continued the conversation from there, and now we're here today.
Yeah.
Listening to that podcast with Trevor, we talked about food. We talked about quote unquote, talked about chefing, but we talked about so much more. He talked about obviously being a father and being a man in this industry, and really identifying with what masculinity now is compared to what it was
it's
then.
A hot topic.
So what are you seeing in your life, in the business, outside of the business, as it relates to being a man right now in the year 2018?
Ooh, heavy questions. Well, I think that as we aforementioned, I think that the anger in the kitchen is subsiding, and I'm really happy to be a part of like a positive environment, rewarding teams, challenging teams instead of punishing people. There was a lot of that going on in the industry when I was younger. A lot of fear over you making mistakes. You do this. Mistakes are great. That's where all of my best things have come from.
Definitely.
As a man, I think it's really important to let everybody be whatever it is that they want to be at work, and to maybe that doesn't always work. That doesn't mean you have to like accept everybody, but to hear everybody out in their process, to give them the chance, give them the time of day. Maybe, well, wow, that's really great. I can't have you doing that here. That's really great. I probably know somebody who might like what you're doing, but
Right.
shake hands and go.
Right.
Being a man, there's so much like disrespect and things related to old school chefs yelling and screaming, throwing pots and pans, and making people feel bad. It's tough to go up against that, but there's your man thing right there, to stand up to that and be like, hey, this is not cool. Is anybody else with me?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's coming with me?
Yeah.
Standing up to that. I'm really happy to run a kitchen where like positivity is just across the board. That's all we do. That's how we operate. There's no place for making people feel bad in the kitchen space that I run. And outside of the kitchen, in my life, being a man, raising kids, kudos to you. This is the terrifying thing in the world. I mean, I'm so good at identifying all the things wrong with everything around that they want to be improved. And when you take all those into perspective, that's frightening to think that you're bringing a small little entity into that and being like, well, this is what we did for you. Sorry.
Yeah.
You take a look at the planet. It's just in such a disarray. The environment seems to be not doing so well, and that's because of us, and that's because of the choices we made. So maybe being a man is identifying that, so that you have something to offer. Like, hey, like this is what I do as a man for the child to follow me, for a son or daughter, or whatever's happening here. This is what I have to pass on. Not just interpersonally, but like globally.
Yeah.
Who do you get your fish from? Who do you get your meat from? Where do you get your vegetables from? These kind of things are that back to your vote with your dollar. You know, that's what's going on. And it doesn't seems really small when you're like, oh my $1.50 for that bunch of purple carrots doesn't really go very far. Well, it actually does. Those farmers are working their butts off and not making very much money. So every little bit of that counts. It's your vote. Trevor talked about sitting down with groups of men who are kind of going through how to help each other. That's an incredible process, which I wish I was more involved in. I'm involved in some business groups, but that's much less goodness to the world, much more entrepreneurship. I think that every man should take a moment, with a lot of the heated things that have been going on in the relation between the two sexes right now, take a moment to like step back and look at like your relationship with the opposite sex, and like how you've interacted with that. And that's so cliche to people, like, well, if it was your daughter, well, like, if it was just a human being, like, exactly. Are we being kind to the people around us?
Yeah.
And not just in the simple way of like, are you abusive or not? Are you not abusive? But the things that we do in our day-to-day life, like, speak just volumes for the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
100%.
It's it. So if you think that one person, the way you treat that one person is different than the way you treat another person, like, you're wrong. It's all the same.
Do you feel like the kitchen itself has the potential to be the analogy for society? And stay with me here if you can. So you mentioned that years ago, and you're not the only one, but I've been aware as well, excuse me, being in the industry, seeing that kind of unforgiving, very demanding, not a lot of feeling and emotion or care in the back of house, to now we're seeing that, I don't want to say soften a bit, but being a little more human. Do you feel like that could be a mirror image of what we are starting to see in society, or is society still living more in those old days of what kitchens used to be?
I mean, there's certain humanness to that aspect before. Clearly, people who are throwing, anger around like that are experiencing, maybe it's traumas from their life. Like those are also human reactions. I'm not going to put anybody down for being an angry person. I'm going to sit back and be like, get that out. Sure. Why?
Right.
Tell me more. Like what's going on there? And if you want kitchens to mirror our society around us, yeah, it would be great to have happy kitchens mirror the life
Yeah.
around us. But I think that, God, we live in such an amazing city, Vancouver. Uh, I haven't traveled a whole lot of my life, but like I can say, like Vancouver's the place for me. It's
Right.
amazing, and the attitude in Vancouver, it kind of ebbs and flows between like me loving it and me kind of questioning it.
Right.
And I think that the kitchens in any city are going to represent the place that they are, like an oyster in the water, or like a fish in a lake. Like it's, if the water is really crappy, the fish is not going to be a happy fish, and everything's not going to go. And so Vancouver has made some questionable choices in the past 5 years in my mind, and I don't know if all those have made our kitchen space very happy, because now I have a shortage of staff. Like you wouldn't believe how hard it is to find proper staff. Thankfully, that encourages us to treat people really well. But it's, the kitchens are mirroring the outside as much as the outside could mirror the kitchen space.
Right. What kind of power does food have? Like, what kind of change can we create with food in not only our city but our country, the continent, worldwide? What power does food have?
Ooh, that's a big question.
Is it endless?
Of course it is, right? So like farming is probably the first place to start with looking at that question. Like we're just so wasteful. A couple nights ago, I cooked some beef with a different cattle that I'd never experimented with before from my mother and some very close friends who happen to be farmers for the UBC farm. And my mom was questioning, oh, like, why are we doing this? And I was like, well, the thing about cattle is like, there's so much water, so much waste. The whole feed process is questionable, and I'm not an expert on it, so I won't really speak too deeply on the science behind, but I know that like eating beef is not a good process. And now I'm not saying that going out and being vegan is all of our choices, but if you look at the detriment to our planet, that's doing far less damage. So the bigger the difference we want to make, the more we need to focus on like where the food comes from and what's happening in the background there.
Yeah.
You work your way down how it changes people and all that. When you eat food, the way it makes you feel, it's the way that you react with people. I was reading an article about dopamine and serotonin and how it has such a relation to our lower intestines and our gut, digestive and our gut and things like that. And there was a particularly cranky person in my life about 2 weeks ago, and somebody walked out of a meeting and said, "Oh wow, and some kind of unkind things." And I was like, yeah, like I have a feeling like that person does not like dairy or bread, and that like they may have had dairy or bread in their life. And they're like, "That's a really weird thing to say." And I was like, "That was a weird thing to say. Where did that come from?" But like that was for some reason where like Johnny's cook brain was like, "No, that's weird." She was unhappy. Have you ever been in like a situation where like your guts feel horrible and you're trying to have an interaction with somebody, you're like, I want out of here. I don't have this conversation. Or like I'm short with you, or I don't want to like really, really go into what's going on there. So at the top end, like we can save the world by farming better. And at the bottom end, we can save our interpersonal relationships by feeding each other better. There's a lot of stuff in the middle.
I love that. Yeah. You mentioned sitting on a milk crate eating food is standard for you at times. What would have been, in recent memory, one of the more memorable, enjoyable meals where you've actually eaten off a plate in a restaurant? Can you describe what that would have been to us? Something you haven't cooked.
I was at a restaurant in Tulum in just down from Playa del Carmen, and it's a restaurant that just had one honking big steel fireplace, and they were cooking everything on the fire there. And I sat down with a fellow named Arturo, who's a legendary dishwasher from a job that I had in 2007. I haven't seen him in maybe a decade. I'm going down there with a woman that I'd married a couple days earlier to blow off some steam for a couple days before going back to work. So I got in touch, and I know that Arturo, because I know this because the Fairmont Mayakoba had called me about 3 years prior for a job reference for this guy for Arturo,
Oh,
because
cool.
I had signed on his papers to be a worker here in Vancouver 10 years earlier. And I was like, yeah, fantastic person, like huge heart, blah, blah. Didn't really have any contact with him. So we got in touch with him, and I was like, I got a recommendation at my wedding from another chef from Toronto, really a chef that I really respect, was in my wedding, to go to this restaurant. He's like, oh, like that's far down there. I was like, can you help me get there? He was like, yeah, no problem. So we bust up to the Fairmont Mayakoba that he was at, had breakfast with all the 1%ers and all the
Yeah.
cartel or whatever it was that was hanging around us. It was not our cup of tea. And then we drove down to Flynn. We had this meal there, and it was just, everything was just, it was like 4 or 5 of the best plates that I've ever had, just like straight out of the ocean and onto this fire charred. And that meal with my wife, Arturo, and his girlfriend, was just that was probably the best sit down meal I've had in years.
Nice.
It was cool. Unfortunately, that's a long way away. I can't do that one every week.
Is there anyone doing anything locally here that you can kind of put on a pedestal or give them a shout out that you think is really kind of leading the way as far as food and service and hospitality?
Food and service and hospitality. There's a lot of good things going on in Vancouver. Last night I had dinner at Tamaki Sushi on Broadway. I say that because like I go there very regularly.
Oh, used to be my regular go-to. How are things at Tamaki?
Chef Hillary. Oh man, respect to Chef Hillary. He's phenomenal. He makes plates for me constantly. Getting me fired up, like fish that I haven't seen before, processes, new things that he knows everything inside out. But that just seems so normal to me because it's so close to my house, and I indulge, whatever budget I can to go and eat the sushi. In Vancouver, we love sushi, right?
Yeah.
Other services in Vancouver that they're really above and beyond. I don't know who I would give a shout out to. There's so many cool little things. I'm looking at like alternate businesses right now. That the Dumpling King Matt is doing some really cool stuff right now, delivering dumplings. I had a conversation with him over coffee the other day, and the reason that shout out goes was because it was something that he said where he's like, no, I can't do that. I need to be the person delivering the dumplings myself, because the personal relationship in that is above and beyond everything else. And I was like, oh, you were talking about, we miss out on that. He's a delivery food service, and he's putting value in that. I was like, oh, like kudos to you. Like,
yeah, man, that's awesome.
Respect. Like that's really cool to think that there's still people out there who are like, I refuse to give up on like the interpersonal. I'm not looking for more money. I'm not looking for more volume. I'm looking for more like eye contact and like humor and being personally involved with the clientele.
That's really cool.
Yeah, very, very cool.
What are some challenges you face in the job you have now? Because I'm assuming it is a little more, I'll use the word corporate. Yep. It's not as personal. And again, I'm going to assume here you're probably purchasing on such a scale that you're kind of forced to shop certain places. Are those some challenges that you have personally? Yeah. What other challenges can you describe that your job currently kind of quote unquote forces upon you?
Well, I'm going to take challenges as a positive thing. The challenges are being able to scope how large some of these orders are and what's to happen. It's interesting to be dealing with huge companies, like GFS, and being able to run them out of product fat. That's crazy. I've never imagined to be in that, having to
I've
scope,
never heard that before.
Having to scope for them like 6 months in advance. Like, I'm going to take this much, so you better stock up. That's crazy. And so the challenge is not like, oh, I don't like this, or oh, this is difficult and I'm not enjoying this. But the challenge to me is the challenge to be great, is to take a step back and be like, how can I serve food that is enjoyable, that is personal, that is made with love, but is made for 1,700 people at breakfast with love. Right. We throw things out. I had just a fantastic employee of mine who I really respect, who I'm putting through an apprenticeship program right now, make a burger for me. A climate change burger was called, which is like a 50-50 mushroom to beef, which is a horrible idea. And we worked out this great process, and I'm programming recipes in and suppliers and talking to our purchasing department and going through these things. And I just had this moment where we ate this perfect one of our 4 samples and that fit all the criteria. I was like, Robert, are you willing to make this are you, because you're going to have to make all these for a week, and then you're going to have to train people to make these. And there was this like He's like, I'll get back to you on Monday, chef. Because the challenge for me now is to being up against, say, things like purchasing agreements and large contracts and,
Right.
and huge quantities. Isn't like, oh, I don't like this. It's like, how am I going to make this work for this? The possibilities are endless. I've never had a bigger budget. I've never had a bigger team. I've never had a bigger effect on people. It may not be, I may not be having food critics sitting in my dining room and, Instagramming and going through their things, or,
Right.
Interviewing and all those things. But although we do have a lot of students who write a lot of Yelp reviews, let me tell you, it's pretty interesting. It's horrible. But so, the challenge to me is how to take the corporate, or it's actually a very union environment,
Right.
and to push that into like a loving, like welcome students, like let's give you nutrients, let's sustain you so you can study, so you can get your things done and you can have fun and do your things.
Sorry to finish thought.
Yeah, no, that's the challenge is taking all of those things that I feel a lot of people would be unhappy with and putting them into the cookie cutter of like happiness.
We had brunch yesterday at a really nice independent restaurant here in Vancouver that I quite love. Generally go there for dinner, but tried their brunch and it was great. The chef and owner was actually on the line, which I thought was really rare on a Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
But I was pretty excited to see this person back there cooking. But I noticed that their demeanor or their body language or their attitude was a bit like ho hum. Oh. And I'm the first to be, I guess, sympathetic and empathetic towards not everyone can be completely like shining and happy every single moment of every single day.
We're faced with a lot of challenges. It's tough to keep that smile.
But I'm challenged. I was challenged by that as a consumer and as someone who knows this person. I believe that everything in that room really feeds off of that person. So you seem like someone that has an endless amount of energy. You seem very optimistic. Been described as that,
hopelessly optimistic,
which
words
is great. Yeah. So I've been kind of how do I say this? Challenged by some of my family and friends in that I wear rose-colored glasses too often, but that's just the way I look at it.
Okay, yeah.
So going back to you though, in regards to your attitude and how you carry yourself, how do you deal with being that guy for your staff, being that guy for the entire commissary, for all the students, because they really are going to feed off of you, because it sounds like you are the one that's kind of setting the tone. So what are you doing day in and day out to remain on that level?
Like it's a relationship. Communication is everything. Communicate with your staff like you would communicate with like a friend. Doesn't mean you have to be happy, but it does mean that if something's wrong, that instead of brooding over it and having a problem with it, like, like, hey, I have a problem with this. This is a thing, and it's making me feel this way. I would rather be happy. Maybe I have that desire in myself to like be positive, and to share that to share that with them. You can't always be stoked on everything. It's not always unicorns and sparkles, but I mean there's no real answer to how to stay positive. Communication is huge. I do something called stand-ups where like I like stand in front of the entire crew twice a day. Which in a spectrum of having got so many cooks is key to let them know what's going on.
How many?
Otherwise, so today, Sunday, I'll be back to work right after this. There's probably 13 people in the back of the kitchen, 7 spaces open in the front, 14 sales attendants, 20. I think that our pool, we just hired like 47 new cooks in the past month and a half, and I'm still understaffed. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
We're still super understaffed. My opening weekend, I was opening restaurants with people we'd never met before who showed up the hour that the restaurant opened. And you're like, hey, welcome.
This is what the plate looks like.
Welcome to the Thunderdome. Like, it's about to be crazy, and I've never met you before.
But is there anything you do daily to kind of, I'll use the word like center yourself? Are you big on like meditation? Everything. Are you a yoga guy? Are you a fitness guy?
All of these things combined at a certain level. I try to take fitness into into my everyday thing for a short period of time. I was like running, my office is right in front of the Rec Beach stairs.
Yeah.
So I can like walk out the door and up the stairs. And I used to go and blast the stairs a couple times. That's not the case right now. Not because of the weather, but just because I've just dropped off on that one.
Right.
You know, sometimes I'll go to a local gym. I got a friend who practices like his own business nearby. I'll go and do that. Kickboxing is a thing that really helps kind of move the energy through the body. Yoga's great as well. All of those things, but I think that the most important thing is that I've scheduled myself two periods a week where I like focus on nothing but like my mental health.
Okay.
We're all, no matter how hopelessly optimistic we are, we all have that dark
side. We got it.
Thing inside of you. You need to address that and let that out and go for it. My wife and I are doing a breathing thing right now once a week with somebody on kind of like a gift exchange. She's a nurse like my wife, and that breathing has just this like deep breathing exercises has just changed the game for me just on a short term. So, you know, that's the practice right now, going and doing, getting acupuncture, shiatsu, you know, seeing classic Chinese medicine practitioners, dancing, you know, I like to climb trees and swim in the ocean is the things for me, you know, swim in the seas, climb trees and help the bees is
I like that.
Very important process.
You should put that on a billboard somewhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be a great billboard. Put that on my Johnny for Mayor sign. UBC Farms really lets me feel like I have at least access to an opportunity to help bees, or at least be involved in farming in some aspect. They give us a little bit of access to their farms once in a while to pull things up, stick things in the ground, and see what's going on, because it's so amazing to have access to that. I have carte blanche on ordering from them. It doesn't affect my food cost if it's more expensive, which is a gift from the UBC gods that be. And their product is amazing. You know, I'm sharing, you know, totes. I'm looking over and I'm seeing like Robert Belkin. I'm like, oh, cool. Like,
shout out Robert.
People that I respect are getting food from you as well. Like that makes me happy. So.
Yeah, it's so cool when you see names that you recognize. And they're voting with their dollars, and they're buying local and supporting these. So those of you listening that don't know what UBC is, obviously it's the University of British Columbia, and university has a fantastic farm there that they do what they can to provide the local community with fantastic produce. Obviously you can probably speak to it better than I can, but they also have a bunch of fantastic programs that I have yet to take advantage of. Are you aware of anything that goes on out at the farm that really intrigues you, or are you really proud that they're doing it? Is there anything that they're doing at the moment or have done in the past that you're like, damn, that is really, really cool?
I mean, the process of engaging their staff. I went out on the farm a month or so ago and pulled up carrots with associate directors of departments in UBC that are related to finance and food programs and to events and things like that. And the farm was just like, hey, we're going to open this up like to all of you people who are involved in the large back workings of UBC. Like, come down here and get dirty. Like, put some boots on and do this with us. And to see like all these executives jump up and be like, yeah, perfect, let's do that. Like that's a great thing to do with my workday. Sure, I got tons of things to do, but I'd much rather be cutting shard. And seeing how hard that is and going through that process. You know, they do boxes at certain times of the year. That's just coming to an end. I'm involved. I try to support all the UBC things as much as possible. Right now I'm doing Sprouts boxes, which is the students through the AMS building, because I can't get boxes from the farm anymore. I'm trying to give them a shot. So shout out to Sprouts. They're very cool. I probably have 2 of their boxes sitting in my walk-in fridge that I haven't brought home yet, but is what it is. And eating at work regularly will do that to you. Other UBC programs. I don't know. I'm really excited to engage more and more. I've only really been in this position for a short period of time. UBC's bounced me around a bunch. You know, no good deed goes unpunished. You do something well and move around. I'm hoping to stay with what I'm doing right now for quite some time because it's the biggest ability to affect.
Right.
And I think that the farms and the food service there could be the model for a lot of interesting things to come. Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. Teaser.
Yeah.
What is it about food? This is a big general question, but I'm just thinking, listening to you talk, and I'm thinking about community and thinking about food and thinking about people and accessibility and affordability. And What is it about food that truly is so special? Why is it that, unlike any other thing, it's all good. Why is food able to bridge the gap between lawyers and farmers and doctors and bus drivers and children and adults? What is it that food has the power of doing day in and day out, ideally 3 times a day?
Well, if you don't food, you die. So
True.
that's pretty key.
Yeah, there's a biological need.
Yes, yeah. So that has to be there. And then, from there, like, you're going to have to do it. You need something to sustain. So why not make it enjoyable, or at least make it something you can share? If food practice was to sit in a closet and have a smoothie of blended protein things, the world would be a very depressing place. That we go back to that breaking bread. Like, it's been an ongoing thing in humanity for probably longer than we know. That's such a huge question. I think it's what brings us together. It all starts with having children. You need to teach this living entity, this beautiful little thing that has no idea, like, here, this is what's going to keep you alive. And it takes quite some time for that thing to really realize that. I mean, here we are, we're adults, and we don't know, like, oh, like, I have hanger, like, people are like being grumpy. You're like, have you eaten today?
Yeah.
No. Well, then maybe
you should probably eat.
Yeah, I should get on that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to really sink into us at any age that, like, this is the most important part of our biology. None of the other stuff's going to operate without it. Yeah. It's like similar to oxygen. It's just, oxygen's actually killing us as we go. As I've been told that the process of oxygen in our environment is what decays our body.
Right.
Food nourishes our body.
So if we're going to find a way to cut out oxygen.
If you figure that out, let me know.
I just thought of a question that was going to be super, super. Oh yeah. Okay. So this will probably air November-ish.
Cool.
Which is pretty close, scarily close to the holidays, Christmas.
Right.
For those of us that celebrate and recognize that as a holiday, can you offer anyone a bit of advice on that meal? Can you give someone an easy recipe or share some sort of, you deal with 2,000 people for breakfast, so putting together a dinner for 12 people shouldn't be too difficult. Is there any tricks of the trade that you would kind of share with listeners to make their Christmas dinner, if they're hosting friends or family, a little bit more palatable?
Oh man, I'm a freak of calendars and lists and all this preparations. The mise en place, if those who aren't familiar, that term is basically what binds us as cooks and chefs, is the mind of the plate to organize everything. You may have noticed when, like, you asked me, like, hey, you want to do a podcast? Sweet, yeah, sure. And I check in and I was like, what can I prepare? What kind of questions are there? It's all about preparation. Like, if you're thinking about feeding 12 people, start now. Be like, oh, hey, like, figure out what people want to eat, do it, and don't make it a stressful situation. We go back to, like, this love into the food thing, scrambling. I remember the first, I think it was a Thanksgiving, could have been Christmas or Thanksgiving. There was a dinner. I was in VCC. I must have been about 18 years old. I just graduated high school, and I took on, like, I'm going to do the whole dinner myself. My aunt and my mom, my multiple aunts would all do it all together, like, as a group collective. Right. They do things at home, they bring it. And I was like, no, like, I got this. And it was mortifying. I was probably like 40 minutes late for what I had shot for. There was so many dishes, so many things. I went way over the top, and it was super stressful. And I remember, like, drinking that night because I was, like, completely just overtaken with stress. Don't make that a part of it. Plan your things out. Do things peacefully. Plan you're doing a turkey or doing a roast or whatever it is. Make it a slow and low. Don't make it something that can overcook really easily, or something that requires a whole lot of day of skill. Brine your bird, blast it and get it crispy, and then just let it sit in there at a nice low temperature to hold all of its juices on and go through. Or exactly the same process for, like, a roast, like get that crust on, get the, rub it with whatever you're doing, make your potatoes ahead of time and warm them up. Don't make it stressful. Make it with love and lots of butter. Duck fat, the stem cell of flavor. Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of people are not ignorant to, but don't have the, oh, there you go, you're lighting up, he's a popular man. Uh, it happens.
I put it on airplane mode. This is my calendar alarming me that the Vancouver Farmers Market Direct has a deadline of 12 tonight that I have to place an order. That's calendars.
Amazing. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I was saying that a lot of people don't have that knowledge of what you guys do as far as preparation in a kitchen. So whether it is like parboiling your veg or cooking off your proteins to rare, like what other things can you kind of share with us, like a magician, if you would, some trade secrets that as a guest in a restaurant or as a diner at UBC, you wouldn't necessarily know that, hey, we did this ahead of time and we just kind of bring it to temperature and slap it on the plate. Don't slap it on the plate. We place it on the plate.
Ooh, I mean, those are not far off common knowledge. A lot of things get par cooked and seared and marked and ready to go. But tricks of the trade,
Like, do you put it like seasoning your water for boiling your veg, or like a lot of things? Like people, I tell these people, I tell friends of mine, they're like, "What? You put salt in your water to boil pasta?" I'm like, "You don't."
mind-boggling. Okay, geez, tricks of the trade.
And you can make it as like
brining was something that changed the game for me when I was like 17 years old. When I learned that instead of like seasoning, salting, because I love salt,
right.
And realizing that I could do the seasoning and the balancing of the fats and a protein ahead of time. You're cooking any type of pork, brine it, any bird, brine it, even seafoods like 2% salinity, 1.5%, or dry rubs is, you're getting into gravlax and things like that. But like brining meats is like a very important thing. Brining vegetables. Recently I was brining a big beet, making a vegetarian beef Wellington called a beet Wellington. Brine that beet for a long time.
Oh, cool.
All of the flavor and stuff is going on there. And you just throw that in a tote in the fridge for 18 hours. And while you're off, doing Pilates or whatever it is you do in your life, the process is happening. The magic's all going there.
That's really cool. I didn't know you could brine a beet, so I just learned something new. There you go.
Brine just about anything, I sit in the bath sometimes with lots of Epsom salts in there. Like, come out, I'm like, I am a brine beet right now.
That's amazing. Yeah. This show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have for you, Johnny, the half a dozen have-tos. So I know you've listened to the show before, but we're really going to test you now with your have-tos. Meaning, I need from you 1 to 6 things that you've experienced in your life, related to food or not related to food, that you feel like our guests have to experience themselves. A trip you've taken, an album you've purchased, a book you've read, a concert you've been to, a movie you've seen, a smell you smelled, a taste you taste. 1 to 6 of Johnny Bridges have-tos.
Is it a 1 to 6 as in like the 6 will be the most important? And
no. Yeah, it could be any scale, but just 1 to 6 items.
Okay, 1 to 6 items. Oysters are my world. So I think that everybody needs to, at some point in their life, be somewhere where the oysters are either on the beach or within reach. Diving, free diving for anything is highly recommended. I've experimented with free diving for Dungeness crab a lot in the past 5 years, which is, I'm totally comfortable with dealing with crabs, lobsters, whatever in the kitchen. But when you are underwater and you have to grab a crab,
you're in their world.
Nobody knows you're peeing yourself when you're underwater, right? It's scary stuff. I would recommend that. Go to France or Italy. Either of the two. There's a lot of dichotomous or competitive things between the two of them. But the time that I spent in the south of France and Paris and the time that I spent in Tuscany, food game changers. It just changed my life. It just batted down anything that I thought that I knew and redid it. Now there's a huge amount of homage to be given to Asian cuisine as well, but I haven't done, outside of Thailand, I haven't done any studying of food in any other Asian areas, and I'd like to. 1, 2. Okay, food.
Does it have to be food?
Oh, okay.
It can be off food. It can be, like I said, it can be life, it can be breathing with your partner. It can be meditating. It can be yoga, whatever you think.
Oh, Bart. Yeah. Well, that's been a life changer for me. So yeah, to experience love. That's pretty.
No, I like that, man.
Experience love. Yeah, man. You don't even have to be in love with a man or a woman. I had a lizard that I loved very much for many years. Just to be in love with things around you, your positivity will follow.
Yes, I like that.
To just let those emotions go. Let the bad emotions out as well. I like to go fast. I like to go really fast. It's something in me. I understand that can be destructive, but shouldn't be destructive. Follow your like your destructive natures in a positive way and let them come out. Don't plug things down there. Like the 10-year-old setting off firecrackers in my head is an example of like those kind of urges being pushed down and forced to come out in a negative way. Like if I like to go fast, like get a rental car and get up on Mauna Kea on the top of Hawaii in the area where the Pentagon is and drive 220 miles an hour. Give it a shot. Like, go for it.
That's awesome.
Which puts my wife to sleep, strangely enough.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. She's like, yeah, when you go really fast, I fall asleep. Like calm us out. Fight, flight, or nap.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Get to know your environment. I talked earlier about Vancouver. Get to know the place you live or the place you came from or whatever. There's a lot of people in Vancouver came from somewhere else.
Right.
But there's so many people living in this city who just have no clue about what is so close to us. Mm-hmm. And the joys of that relating to food is like go and talk to your farmer and be like, hey, like what actually grows here? Right. You'd be surprised how like a lot of the things that grow here that we eat, a lot of the trees on the street, things like that are not from here at all. Mm-hmm. Have been brought from somewhere else. The more we know about our environment, the more you'll find like you can eat better. You can shop better. Stop shopping in the middle of the grocery store and just go around the outside where all the fresh stuff is. That's what you want.
Yeah, definitely.
Pick and choose, vote with your dollar again.
I like that.
Oh, geez.
One more?
We talked about, you asked me the ways to keep sane or the ways to keep positivity. I talked about yoga, breathing, martial arts, physical activity like that. God, take care of your body. That's coming from me. And like, I just stomped all over my body in my 20s of, 100-hour work weeks and no sleep and bad relationships and alcohol and all these things. Like take care of your body. Like it's important. I'm just coming into my 30s and realizing like, whoa, like things change fast. And it's time to maybe as a whole realize that like a lot of our habits are quite destructive to us, and I take as much practice as I can as trying to take care of myself, and I invite everybody to do the same. Hell
yeah, I like that, man. Then I have for you. You do that pretty easily, actually. Most people do one or two, and then they just kind of stare at me, and they with their eyes they're saying, "Can I stop now?"
Okay, well, like I said, I was like, oh, am I going to be able? I mentioned this to somebody in my life. I was like, I'm doing a podcast on Sunday. Like my father's journalist. And I said, oh, it's booked for an hour and a half on my calendar. And my mom's like, yeah, it's going to be tough for you to talk for an hour and a half. She was being facetious. I was like, in my head, I'm worried about it, but I can talk.
It's awesome, man. You've done great. We're not quite done yet, and we're just about at an hour. So you're doing really well.
Okay, here we go.
But we're getting close. I need from you now the half a dozen haven't yet. So things that you haven't experienced in your life that you want to experience. So 1 to 6, and you mentioned Asia is something you want to kind of dive into a little bit deeper. Maybe that would be one for you, but I don't want to say them for you.
Don't put words in my mouth.
So I need 1 to 6, 1 to half a dozen of Johnny Bridges haven't yet.
Okay, haven't yet. I haven't yet kiteboarded around the island, which my cabin is on, Thornby Island up the Sunshine Coast. There we go. I want to do that. 2, I have not learned to fly a helicopter and go through the process, which is called auto rotate, which you should Google that. Auto rotate is a process that you need to execute before you get a pilot's license. Unfortunately, this is far out of my tax bracket, so I can't afford it, but that's something that I want in life.
You know, it's so crazy. If I can interrupt for just 1 second. I recorded a podcast with Lori Joyce. Lori Joyce is the founder of Cupcakes way back when. She had a TV show. There's a few locations still in Vancouver, but now she is the owner and operator of Better With Ice Cream. One of her haven't yets was
auto rotate.
Was helicopter.
Oh, cool.
And you're the only 2 out of 36 guests. Anyway, so
I should give her a call.
Yeah, I'll definitely introduce you. Don't worry.
Cupcakes and helicopters.
Yeah, there you go. And ice cream.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, what did I say? Auto rotate. So that's where the auto rotate is. We take the helicopter up, and the instructor cuts the power, and you land it without power. Blades go backwards, and the power,
easy.
The power in that, so it's super easy, right? Totally reachable. Like I said, set those goals really far off, and you will always be challenged.
Yeah.
I've been pretty good at crushing life goals. I really wanted to see live volcano action, and me and my now wife managed to go to Mauna Lani in Hawaii a couple of years ago, right when it started. Now it's been raising hell, but it was just starting to bubble up. And we went and shucked some oysters and shotgunned a beer on the edge of that as it was bubbling up. That was pretty cool. I met that one. Can't put that on the list, but it's an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I would like to take down a bear with a bow.
Oh, cool.
I'm big into my recurve bow, and I've never shot anything with it, and I think that would be a real respect to the land. And you're just like, oh, I kill an animal, respecting the land, but like the process of truly like hunting for something and honoring every single portion of meat in every way that comes off of that is something that I'd really like to do. I'd like to be able to pass that knowledge on, but I don't have it yet. So I'm just trying to learn. I've read a lot of books, talked to a lot of people, gone hunting a couple of times, done some things, but man, like, hitting a cardboard box with that thing accurately every single time is tricky, let alone to take down a full-size bear. That's a big one. I not yet, but soon look forward to the idea of being a father. That's a pretty big one in life. Yeah,
good for you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, no, thank you. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
It's terrifying, and there's so many other things on board before that, hopefully.
Yeah.
And what am I at? 4?
That's 4, yeah.
Okay. We did so good the first time. We get 6, so let's make sure to do this. Other things that I want in life. I want to jump out of a plane. We did that on like our 4th date. Kirsten and I put on some leopard print onesies and blitzed it out over top of some forest fires out of a plane at 14,000 feet. That was pretty cool. We had good dates. Still doesn't count as a 5. What do I want to do in life?
Is there a restaurant you haven't been to that's kind of on your hit list?
I'd love to go to Fazakan. That'd be phenomenal. Or I'd like to go to Noma or just one of the restaurants that just find some way to like get back in time and go to El Bulli. Oh my God! Or just anywhere in San Sebastian would be great. All those things. There's so many of those restaurants that have been put in that 1% upper echelon that you can't get to, but to experience one of those and to just like flood myself with the emotions. I'm sure I'd cry. I cried everything. I'm such a crier. But to do that, that's a great recommendation that I will take this time, to have it at a 3-star Michelin restaurant or something of the equivalent, you know, that really, that's really like a game changer to see somebody like Grant doing a linea in Chicago, things that just change the game to experience that. Right. Because essentially we're all just copying each other. Yeah. For the most part, there's 100%. No new things. And it's very complementary to each other when we copy each other, but like there's not a lot of really new stuff going out. And, once in a while you'll read a book by somebody like, Grant Schatzer or you look at Al Bulli, like all the books that came even after that. And like, you're like, wow, nobody had ever thought of this before. There's some cool Canadian people doing that too. Martin Picard gets huge respect from me. Like, what a cool guy over in Montreal, just being a Frisian bush boy, eating pig and foie gras and pouring maple syrup on himself. It's an idol of mine for sure.
One more.
I really like the idea of climbing mountains. I just haven't found which mountain it is that I'd like to put into this one thing, but some peak somewhere to be the highest. I think me and Kirsten made it up to 14,000 feet a couple years ago. Was sneaking by an American facility, telescope facility. We snuck up and got up really, really early in the morning and got past when they closed the gates for security at 5 a.m. and got up to 14,000 feet at a facility to watch that. Wow. But I want to do something that doesn't involve driving, something climbing a mountain somewhere, going to Peru or going to Nepal or something like that.
Very cool.
And to do that with your partner and it's always great when you get into crazy experiences to see your true colors shine out. And that's why you're together. You're like, well, this is the worst situation ever. I love you.
I still love you.
Yeah, I still love you. There you go. Okay.
Amazing, dude. You did so well. You did 6 and 6, which is pretty rare. So well done. And I want to take a moment, if I can, to celebrate you and to say thank you. I say this on the podcast often, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart. The most valuable thing that we do have outside of our dollars is our time. So I want to thank you for giving me yours today and supporting this project. And I want to celebrate you and your energy and what you do for this industry. This industry can be extremely thankless, as I know you know firsthand. There isn't always people asking to see the chef and give the chef kudos for whatever he or she are doing back there. So I want to take a moment to celebrate you for going through your 20s like a bat out of hell and sticking with it and creating positive change through your attitude and through your actions and emotions. So thank you so much for doing that. And I hope that you can hang on to that 5, 10, 15 years from now, because that's what I think this industry needs, is people like you who seemingly have an unlimited amount of energy. And I think that's what it's going to take for us to keep affecting positive change. And what we were talking about at the start of the podcast in regards to kind of seeing how I define hospitality fading. I think it's people like you that give me and others hope that it'll exist. So
thank you.
So kudos to you, man. And thanks again so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. It's a real interaction. And I think that that people, maybe the chef thing, like people are much more likely to follow, to respect, and to listen to people who are always real as opposed to always right. And the old doctrine would be like, I am the chef, I am the boss. And I'm like, I'm the chef, but tell me what you just did there.
Yeah, exactly. And something you mentioned I think is so important for all of us to keep in mind is original ideas. There really is no original idea. I think it was Albert Einstein. I'm going to Google that afterwards, but I think he said that there is no such thing as an original idea. And I think having that sort of awareness and level of being humble goes such a long way in an industry where a lot of people can get pretty disconnected with reality. Especially in your world of the back of house, it can be very, very ego driven. But again, I think we are seeing a positive change in that, where it's all about the food and it's all about the people. So again, I celebrate you for being someone that's flying that flag right now for the industry, and keep that up. Any last parting words you want to share with your comrades, people in the industry, people out of the industry, words of wisdom, words of positivity, anything you want to share? Oh, and before you do that, actually, where can people find you? Where can they support you? And how can they figure out what you're doing?
Oh, geez, find me, support me. I mean, I have a pretty good following at UBC with the students, but that's strictly for residential people. You can find me on Instagram, Johnny's Knife for Hire. I, of course, have Facebook as well that's linked up to that. Those are pretty easy. UBC Foodie is where we showcase a lot of our residential food videos, bios, speaking on sustainability farming, all the rest of that. I can also be found doing private events here and there. Those are pretty top secret. I have a brand new business that's just dropped a landing website yesterday called Gourmet Keto Bites, where we do delivery, ketogenesis diet stuff. You can look out for that in November for a soft open, and January full service ahead.
Very cool. Maybe we can do like launch this podcast to support launching of your soft launch.
Sure, yeah, word up. We'll do that.
Yeah. Do you want to quickly talk about what keto is? Those that don't know.
Ketogenesis is a dietary program that we're just trying to make available to the public. My business partner, who's a walking example of like all the excellence that can come from that, is to fast for a long period of time. Although that's kind of the optional part, and then to put high quantities of basically fats and proteins into your body to put it into ketogenesis, which is something that happens in our digestive tract, to promote just like healthy digestion. There's so many things going on in our diet these days that we were talking earlier, dairy, the gluten that everybody's so scared of, but the processed foods essentially that are just tearing us apart from the inside, making us unhappy, making us unhealthy. And I'm not saying that ketogenesis is an answer to it. I think that intuitive nutrition is really what we are selling as a company, but keto is our launching space from that. Right. To be intuitive about your nutrition, to know, what you eat will ultimately affect your day, your week, your whole lifetime. So when people get a view of what we're doing, I think that they'll see that we're not just hustling keto directly to your door. We're trying to listen to what people have to say about the food that they eat and what they want to have in it. And we're doing meal planning for them because everybody's too busy to make their own food, which is great. The demand is huge. It's been pushed back so much because of high demand for us, and I'm really excited to drop that. However, this is just side projects for me in a world that just keeps throwing projects at us.
That's awesome, man. So yeah, any last words of wisdom for people, like I said, in your industry, comrades, colleagues, or anyone that eats food, which is hopefully everybody?
Words of advice. Yeah, like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything is a one that's been really on me this year. But also just like, I'm here to help. Reach out to your friends. There's a massive movement of being aware of taking care of each other in the industry, whether that's like on the tough side of mental health or on the side of like, there's only so many culinarians in Vancouver. Like, I'm here to help. If you want to hang out, give me a call, go for coffee, go for lunch or whatever. Like, I would love to speak to everybody, which is why we're sitting here.
Yeah,
right
man.
now.
So rad. I appreciate again, you making time for me in this project. And yeah, guys, reach out to Johnny. He is a super rad dude. He's got a ton of energy and a lot to share. So I appreciate that. I want to say thank you to you guys. I appreciate you for tuning in week after week and supporting my podcast. You know what to do. Until next time, guys, be good and do good. That's it, dude.
Right on.
We did it.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you. You crushed it. An hour 12.
Well.